She was shamed right in the glittering lobby of the 7-star hotel, crouched over, scrubbing a table under a chandelier worth more than her salary for a year. A receptionist with a sharp smile sneered, "Careful, wipe the guest's shoes by mistake and you'll be jobless." The manager didn't even glance at her, just waved her away like clutter. He wanted her gone before the royal entourage stepped in. But when Sheikh Fidel began speaking in a tongue so old it echoed like history itself, no one understood him. Not a translator, not a manager, not a single staff member. That's when Amir, the maid shoved into the shadows, lifted her head and repeated every word in flawless Hadrami dialect. The room froze. Forks clinked onto plates, conversation stopped mid-sentence. The sheikh rose slowly, eyes narrowing. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. "Or are you one of us already?" The lobby glittered with gold, polished marble, glass that shimmered like fire. And yet in the middle of it all stood Amamira Collins, 29 years old, plain uniform, hair tied back without fuss, no makeup, no jewelry. Only a rag in her hand and a bucket at her side. Her palms were raw from hours of scrubbing, her shoulders stiff from bending, but she kept moving. The receptionist with crimson nails leaned over the counter, her scarf glittering with designer logos, and smirked. "You missed a spot," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Amir bowed slightly, said nothing, and polished again. She was used to it, the looks that slid past her like she was invisible, the quiet jokes at her expense. They thought she was nothing, a shadow on the marble floors she cleaned, but she wasn't nothing, not by a mile. The whole hotel pulsed with nervous energy that day. The staff had trained for weeks, every surface spotless, every smile rehearsed. Sheikh Fidel bin Nasser, an oil giant, was arriving with his full retinue. Amir didn't care about the glamour. She just worked, moving silently, wiping every corner of the grand lobby. The manager caught sight of her too close to the entrance. "Move!" he snapped, his voice a hiss. "Don't let him see you." He waved his hands as if she were trash to be swept away. Amir lowered her gaze and obeyed, stepping back toward a column. The receptionist's laugh rang out sharp. "A maid near the sheikh? Prestige ruined." Guests nearby chuckled. Some raised eyebrows, others shook their heads. Amir ducked into the corner, her rag folded neatly in her hands. Across the lobby, a cluster of influencers lounged on velvet chairs, cameras raised, designer watches flashing. One woman with bronze skin and a grating laugh pointed her phone at Amir. "Oh my God, look at her shoes," she shouted. "Did you rob a thrift store?" Her friends howled, one pretending to choke. Amir's hand paused. Her plain black flats were scuffed but spotless. She didn't raise her eyes, didn't argue. She kept cleaning, her movements calm, deliberate. The influencer leaned closer, filming. "Smile for my story, maid girl." Amir's jaw tightened. She glanced up just once, long enough for the woman's laughter to die in her throat. "And before I continue, if you're watching this, do me a favor. Tap that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. Stories like this about people humiliated, underestimated, then revealed, deserve to be told. Thanks for staying here with me." The sheikh's entrance shifted the entire room. His robes shimmered, his presence heavy, commanding. His men followed, suits, shades, clipped voices. Staff scrambled to serve, hands shaking as they bowed. Amir kept to her corner, polishing a table no one noticed. She was supposed to disappear, but her ears caught every word of the sheikh's voice. He sat down, leaned back, and spoke in that forgotten dialect. "No one here understands us," he told his aides. "We may speak freely." They discussed oil fields near a disputed border. Risky, dangerous. One aide whispered, "If this leaks, we're ruined." Amir's rag froze in her hand. Slowly, she pulled out her phone. Not to film, not to spy, but to open an app she had coded herself. A tool for translating rare dialects in real time. A guest in a silk suit spotted her. He scoffed. "Playing games at work?" He called the manager over, voice booming. "You let your staff waste time like this?" The manager's cheeks flamed. He stormed at Amir. "Put that away, you're making us look like fools." Amir slid the phone back into her pocket. "I was checking something," she murmured. The guest laughed loud, mocking. "Checking how to mop?" His words drew more cruel chuckles. Amir's fingers gripped the bucket handle tight. She didn't reply. She simply lifted the bucket and walked steadily to another table. But one of the aides, a tall man with hair slicked back tight, had been watching. His eyes narrowed. "You?" He barked suddenly, pointing at her. "What are you staring at?" "Do you understand?" The voice cut through the air, sharp as a blade. Heads turned, eyes narrowing on Amamira. The receptionist crossed her arms, lips curling into a smirk. "Don't think scrubbing floors gives you the right to eavesdrop on royalty." Another aide barked, his tone dripping with contempt. The manager, his face blotched red with panic, hurried over. "Amamira!" "Storage room now. You're banned from the lobby." But Amamira didn't shrink. Her shoulders stayed square, her gaze steady. She dipped her head politely. "I didn't mean to. I only know a little Arabic." The aides erupted in laughter. The one with the sleek ponytail sneered. "Arabic? Since when do maids speak the tongue of kings?" The receptionist cackled along, her laugh cutting through the gold-lined lobby like broken glass. Amamira's hand tightened around the rag, but her expression didn't waver. She turned to leave, each step calm, deliberate. Near the corner, a bellboy, barely 18, face pale with nerves, hesitated. He'd seen her before, the woman who stayed long after shifts, working quietly, always kind. He leaned close and whispered, "Don't let them break you, Amira. They're only loud." She paused, her eyes softening just a fraction. She gave him the faintest nod, then moved on. But his words lingered like a spark in the cold air. Her fingers brushed the pocket of her skirt where a small photograph rested. A boy's smiling face. Her brother Sammy. That photo grounded her, kept her steady. She didn't need their approval. She never had. The Sheikh watched, eyes narrowing as though weighing her soul. He leaned forward, his voice low and challenging, this time in ancient Arabic. "If you truly understand, repeat that in Hadrami prose." The entire room froze. Hadrami prose was nearly extinct. No aide, no manager. Not even the official translator could decipher it. He fumbled with his tablet, sweating. Amamira stopped walking. Slowly she turned, folded her hands before her stomach, a gesture of old-world court formality, and spoke. Her voice carried clear and measured, every syllable wrapped in the rhythm of Hadrami tradition. Flawless. A silver goblet slipped from an aide's trembling hand, crashing onto the marble floor. The Sheikh rose abruptly, robes whispering as he moved. His stare cut through the silence. "What is your name?" The manager, horrified, lunged forward, nearly clamping a hand over Amira's mouth. "Silence! Enough! You're finished!" The receptionist leaned toward a co-worker, whispering loud enough to be heard. "She's digging her own grave," other staff murmured in agreement. "Who does she think she is?" A woman from the Sheikh circle, draped in heavy gold jewelry, screeched, "Throw this servant out! She doesn't belong among us." Amamira bowed her head slightly, her words soft but steady. "I only answered because you asked." The Sheikh raised one hand, and instantly the noise died. His gaze lingered on her face, searching, calculating, as if unraveling a mystery only he saw. But silence didn't save her. A young woman from the entourage, makeup caked, voice venomous, jabbed a finger toward Amira's blouse. "Look at that uniform, it's falling apart. And you dare pretend to be a scholar?" She smirked, turning to the crowd. "She probably stole it from the laundry." The room snickered. Amamira brushed her hand over the frayed hem of her blouse, fingers tracing the threads. She didn't flinch, didn't explain. Instead, she lifted her chin ever so slightly and met the woman's gaze. "It's clean," she said softly. The smirk faltered. Confidence cracked. From the back, an older man stepped forward, gray streaks in his beard, metals faintly gleaming on his chest. He squinted, his eyes narrowing with recognition. His hand trembled as he pointed. "You were in Ankara 2016, he rasped. "I remember that voice. You were Cedar Tree." The name struck like lightning. Cedar Tree. A code name whispered in classified rooms. A woman whose translations once kept two nations from the brink of war. The aides exchanged anxious glances. The manager's mouth fell open. The Sheikh sat back, folding his hands. "Why are you working here as a maid?" Amamira's eyes flickered just for a heartbeat toward the photograph in her pocket. The boy's smile. "Sammy, I walked away," she said simply. "I've done enough." The Sheikh's expression remained unreadable, but he gave a single nod. "Today," he said, "I ask you to do it once more." A junior aide, face flushed with ambition, scoffed. He stepped forward, pointing at her with shaking hands. "This is madness. She's a cleaner, not a diplomat. You can't trust her." He turned on the Sheikh, desperate. "She's bluffing." "Making it up." The crowd murmured approval, tension swelling. Amamira didn't raise her voice. She simply folded her rag, laid it neatly on the table, every movement precise and deliberate. The simple act silenced the aide. His bluster evaporated, his face paling as if her dignity had cut deeper than words ever could. But the ponytailed aide wasn't done. He sneered. "You think repeating a few phrases earns you a seat? Could be luck. A trick." Another aide, younger, grinning smugly, challenged her. "Prove it. Answer in extinct Bedouin Arabic." The room leaned in, waiting for her to fail. Amamira didn't blink. She opened her mouth and began to sing. A folk song from the Al-Harif tribe, a melody forgotten by all but those born within its deserts. Her voice rose, soft but haunting. Each note laced with memory, each word flawless. The younger aide staggered back, color draining from his face. "Impossible," he whispered. "Only someone from Al-Harif would know that." Amira's gaze met his, calm, steady, unyielding. The words slipped from her lips like a stone cutting through still water. "I lived with that tribe for 2 years." Silence stretched heavy across the room. The ancient melody still lingered in the air, wrapping itself around the walls of the grand lobby. The staff, the guests, even the entourage froze. From the kitchen doorway, a clatter broke the silence. A hotel chef, broad-shouldered, flour-dusting his apron, had dropped a tray of glasses. The sound echoed sharp, but no one dared scold him. His eyes were wide, his voice trembling as he stepped forward. "I've heard that song," he whispered, his gaze locked on Amamira. "My grandmother. She used to sing it in our village. How could you possibly know it?" For the first time that day, Amamira's face softened. She looked at him with warmth, her reply simple, unembellished. "I listened." The chef's throat worked as he swallowed hard. His hands clenched his apron like it was the only thing keeping him steady. He nodded once, stepping back, his eyes wet with memory. And then, the Sheikh rose. This time with authority. His robes swept the marble floor as he extended a hand toward her. "Amamira Collins," his voice rang firm. "I need you. Come with me to Geneva." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The same aides who mocked her scrambled to their feet, their earlier arrogance dissolving into groveling bows. "At your service, Miss Collins," one stammered, his sneer replaced by shaky respect. The manager, pale and trembling, froze mid-step. The receptionist's laughter had died long ago. Now her face was drained of all color as her hands gripped the desk for balance. Amira untied her apron, folding it neatly with deliberate precision, and draped it over her arm. She bowed slightly, her voice steady, quiet but clear. "I don't need recognition," she said. "All I want is for my voice to serve when it matters most." She turned toward the glass doors. The click of her plain black shoes echoed across the marble. Outside, the flash of cameras lit up the evening. The world was waiting, though it didn't yet know her name. Just before she could step out, an elderly guest, hidden until now, rose from a corner armchair. A cane in her hand, a velvet shawl draped around her shoulders, her gaze sharp despite her age. She reached out and touched Amira's arm. "You remind me of my daughter," she whispered, her voice steady. She never let them break her either. Amira paused, meeting her eyes with an unreadable but gentle expression. She inclined her head slightly. "Thank you," she murmured, then pushed the door open. The woman watched her leave, pride shining through the mist of her gaze. But Amira's story hadn't started here in this gilded lobby. Years earlier in Yemen, she had been someone else entirely. The daughter of a diplomat and a scholar. A girl raised in privilege, surrounded by books, maps, and languages. By 15, she commanded 8 tongues, some so rare that even seasoned linguists had never studied them. Her father taught her politics. Her mother taught her the weight of words. But her brother Sammy taught her laughter, until the day it was stolen. An airstrike, a wrong street, a life ended too soon. Amira had been 20, translating coded communications for the UK Ministry of Defense. Her words once carried the weight of nations. But when Sammy died, she laid it all down. She walked away from the desk, the city, the power. She wanted nothing but silence. One night, in a Yemeni village lit by starlight, she sat beside an elder of the Al-Harif tribe. The woman sang a folk song, her voice cracked yet unshaken. Amira, notebook in hand, wrote down each line. Before leaving, the woman pressed Amira's hands and said, "Now you carry our stories." From that night, Amira never sang again, until today. The hotel had been her hiding place. Dubai's seven-star palace where the rich and powerful passed through daily. She didn't need the wages. Her family's wealth was untouched. But the work gave her rhythm, something steady. Folding sheets, polishing glasses, scrubbing marble, it kept her hands busy while her mind remained sharp. She listened, always listened. Deals whispered, secrets traded, alliances formed. And she let them pass through her, like wind through the desert until the Sheikh spoke that forgotten dialect. Until the air shifted. Until Sammy's memory pushed her forward, whispering, "Don't hide, Amira. Not today." In the storage room where she had been ordered to vanish, she pulled the photo from her pocket. Sammy's boyish grin stared back, his eyes alive with mischief. Her thumb traced his cheek, her breath steadying. An older housekeeper peeked in, her voice soft. "You all right, Habibti?" Amira slid the photo back into her pocket, straightening her shoulders. "Just thinking," she answered. The woman gave her a knowing smile, her palms rough from years of labor. "You're stronger than they'll ever see." And with that, Amira picked up her bucket, adjusted her blouse, and stepped back into the lobby, ready to face the world that had tried to dismiss her. Back in the lobby, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The aides who once sneered now avoided her gaze. The manager hovered close by, his mouth forming hurried apologies Amira didn't bother to acknowledge. The receptionist, the loudest mocker of them all, had vanished altogether. Amira stood beside the Sheikh's chair, her posture straight, translating his every word as he spoke to his circle. Her tone was calm, sharp, transforming ancient Arabic into flawless English, then French, then back again. Each sentence rolled effortlessly, her cadence exact. The general who had recognized her in Ankara watched with trembling hands. He leaned toward a colleague and whispered, "She was the one who saved us then. No one else could have done it." His voice carried awe, but Amira's expression didn't shift. Her fingers brushed briefly against the photo hidden in her pocket, grounding her, reminding her why she endured. At the edge of the lobby, a journalist had slipped in with the crowd of news crews, his badge pinned slightly askew. He scribbled furiously in his notebook, eyes fixed on Amira. When a pause came, he rushed forward. "Miss Collins, just one question. How did you learn all this?" Amira paused, her hand lightly resting on the back of a chair. Her eyes found his, steady and unflinching. "By listening," she said simply. The reporter waited, expecting more. But she turned away, adjusting her plain skirt as though the conversation had ended. His pen stilled, his face caught between admiration and frustration. She didn't owe him her story. She didn't owe anyone. By nightfall, her name was on every news channel. "The maid who spoke the language of kings," headlines declared. The fallout was swift. The receptionist's comments were leaked online. Within a day, she was dismissed. The ponytail aide lost his post, tied to a failed deal uncovered by journalists. The arrogant young advisor who dared challenge her. He disappeared from the Sheikh's council entirely, his social media accounts wiped clean. None of this was Amira's doing. She didn't expose them, didn't seek revenge. She simply kept moving forward. The Sheikh's invitation to Geneva wasn't a hollow gesture, it was real. A summit awaited where borders, alliances, and lives would be decided. Amira didn't say yes immediately. That night in her modest apartment, she sat on her worn couch holding Sammy's photo. His grin was frozen in time, a reminder of everything she had lost and everything she still carried. Her mind wandered back to the Al-Harif tribe, to the 2 years spent learning their songs around crackling fires, to Ankara, where nights bled into dawn as she translated in rooms where one wrong word could ignite war. She had walked away from that weight once. Could she shoulder it again? The Sheikh's words echoed inside her. "I need you one more time." At the airport waiting for her flight, a little girl no older than 10 watched Amira with wide eyes. Her weary mother tugged her sleeve, whispering, "Don't stare." But the child blurted out loud enough for Amira to hear, "Mama, isn't that the lady from the news?" Amira's face softened. She crouched, pressing a coin into the girl's palm, a worn Yemeni rial shining faintly under the lights. "Keep listening," she whispered. The girl beamed, clutching the coin like a treasure. Amira rose, hoisted her simple bag over her shoulder, and boarded the plane. The next morning, she packed light, plain blouses, skirts, nothing extravagant. The Sheikh's team had already arranged everything. At the terminal, a woman in a sleek suit handed her a badge. I'm Amira Collins, Global Head of Diplomatic Languages. Her thumb traced the letters. She didn't smile, but she nodded. That was enough. The plane climbed into the sky, Dubai shrinking beneath her. She never looked back. Geneva was chaos. Diplomats shouting, papers scattering, translators scrambling to keep up. Amira walked in, her modest clothes stark among tailored suits. Whispers followed her, eyes tracked her. She ignored them all. At the long table, she took her place, her voice steady, weaving through dialects others couldn't even name. When tensions rose over a border dispute, both sides hardened, refusing to yield. Amira spoke. A single line, an ancient verse from a revered poet, one both nations claimed as their own. The room fell silent. Slowly, the discussion shifted. The deadlock broke. The deal inched forward. No one mocked her now. During a recess, an older diplomat approached, glasses fogging as he removed them. I was in Ankara, he said softly. Back then, I was just a junior officer. I never thanked you. You kept us alive that night. Amira regarded him quietly, then offered the faintest nod before returning to her notes. Gratitude wasn't what she sought. Nearby, a young translator hovered nervously. She was barely out of school, her notebook clutched tightly in both hands. I studied your work, she whispered shyly. Your Ankara translations, they're in my textbooks. Amira's pen stilled. She glanced at the girl, her eyes softening just slightly. Keep studying, she murmured. The girl lit up, nodding eagerly before retreating, notebook pressed against her chest like a relic. Reporters still hunted her, cameras flashing, questions flying. She slipped through corridors, head lowered, refusing interviews. But one afternoon, leaving the summit hall, a reporter blocked her path. Miss Collins, why stay silent? You're a hero. Amira stopped, her gaze locking onto his. Her words came quiet but unyielding. I'm not silent. I'm simply finished talking. With that, she turned and walked away, her bag slung over her shoulder. Back in Dubai, the hotel had changed. Staff whispered her name with reverence, almost like a legend. The new receptionist, young, timid, kept a clipping of Amira's photo saved on her phone. The manager sent an email, long and apologetic, offering her job back. Amira never replied. She no longer needed to. Her life had shifted far away from that place. Months later in London, a global summit was underway. A man entered quietly, tall, composed, carrying the weight of power without saying a word. He was Amira's husband. No one had known. Not the Sheikh, not his aides, not even the journalists who had chased her name across the world. He didn't boast or introduce himself. He simply stood at her side as she translated, his calm presence filling the room. When one of the Dubai aides, the same man who had mocked her before, recognized him, he went pale. The aide didn't need to ask his name. His family's influence, his reputation, his wealth all spoke for him without words. Shaken, the aide lowered his eyes, his hands trembling on the table. Amira didn't react. She just continued her work, her voice steady, her focus on the pages before her. She had nothing to prove. Later that evening, London's streets glistened after a light rain. Amira stepped outside for a breath of air, the city's neon lights reflecting on wet stone. Nearby, a street musician strummed a battered guitar, his voice carrying a gentle, familiar tune, an old Yemeni lullaby her mother used to sing when she was a child. Amira stopped in her tracks, her chest tightening as memories washed over her. Slowly, she dropped a coin into the open guitar case. Her fingers trembled slightly as they left the coin behind. The musician lifted his eyes, meeting hers. He didn't know who she was, yet for a fleeting second, his gaze seemed to understand what she carried within. The aftermath for others arrived quietly, like ripples spreading from a stone. The receptionist who had once sneered at her never rebuilt her career. In hospitality, her name became a stain, whispered as a warning. The ponytailed aide tried to open his own consultancy, but no one trusted him after the truth about the failed deal leaked. The young advisor, the one who had mocked her so confidently, was abandoned by his sponsors, his arrogance wiped away, leaving only silence behind. Amira never lifted a hand against them. She didn't expose them, didn't seek revenge, didn't need to shout. The truth itself carried the weight, and so she stood one night in a quiet room overlooking the lights of London. Her husband was beside her, silent, his hand brushing gently against hers. There were no questions between them, no need for explanations. He knew her as she was. Her whole life, others had measured her worth by her clothes, her quiet job, her silence in crowded rooms. They had judged her by what she seemed, not what she was. Yet she had never bowed, never begged, never surrendered her dignity. Now the world saw her differently. Not as a maid, not as a translator hidden in the background, but as a reflection, a mirror. Because you know what that feels like too, don't you? To be dismissed, to be laughed at, to feel the sharp edge of words meant to cut you down, and still choose to stand tall. You're not weak for being quiet. You're not alone for carrying pain without complaint. And Amira's story? It proves something powerful. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard, so tell me, where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and don't forget to follow so we can keep walking this path together, through heartbreak, through betrayal, and at last toward healing.